Stream is transferred. If you're on the internet and listening to this, and you can hear what I'm saying, say so in the YouTube chat. Okay. I have created an issue in the ETH2O PM repo, which we did not rename in the great renaming because we plan on deprecating it, but I haven't. And I made an issue named deprecate this repo. So I've publicly committed to doing so by the middle of next month. I just need to figure out where to put the old information and move into the other PM repo. Announcement. But until then, we're using an issue in the old repo. Issue 239, call 74. Let's begin. Altair is happening. I know that everyone on this call knows, but if you're listening, Altair is happening. If you run a node, validator or not, a beacon node, you must upgrade. Unless you want to run the old chain, but otherwise you must upgrade. I did create, I scraped some data from nodewatch.io, which has, is, when possible, collecting the client version, and I summed the Altair versions against the total, and the doc I just shared with you shows that by node count that nodewatch.io can find, which I believe between the couple of crawlers, there are some disparities, so this is not canon, but at least from what we can see from this tool, 62% of nodes have upgraded, and then depending on the client type, it's a bit skewed. Looks like Prism's 58%, Lighthouse 73%, Teku 86%, Lodestar 100%, and Nimbus, for some reason that crawler is not getting the client version. Maybe it's being obfuscated, but I have not dug into that. So I think we're in like reasonably good shape. That doesn't map to the validator node weight, but that has increased. A couple days ago it was less than 50%. So I'll be keeping my eye on that through the weekend. If you have connections with node operators, if you run a staking community called ETHStaker, if you have a Twitter, sound the alarm. It's time to upgrade. I guess we wanted to get on this call and make sure everything's fine with respect to Altair. Are there any issues or anything people would like to discuss as we move into next week?
Just one comment, Danny.
Oh, yes.
So we launched an experiment with comparing the results of both crawlers, NodeWatch and our crawler, in the same node, running from the same moment. We let it run both for 24 hours and see to see if we get the same results or not. And we observe quite a number of nodes that differ. So we look at the source code of them and see if they were doing using another technique to categorize nodes, but actually it's exactly the same that we do. So that our conclusion was that most likely there is a kind of networking differences on the way we paired with nodes, and so we started looking into it. We looked into the IP addresses of those nodes that we recognize differently, and we noticed that there was a bunch of nodes that we saw that they don't see, and there's a bunch of nodes that they see that we don't see. And that's basically the origin of the differences.
Right.
And we look at it, and we also notice that for the nodes that they see and we don't see, we notice that they have also other fork digests. So it kind of looks like they are not only peering with mainnet nodes, but maybe other
Okay.
networks.
Okay.
And so that may be the source of the difference.
So that would show one direction of the difference, right? But there's the other direction of the difference where there's nodes you see and they don't, correct?
That's correct. And we noticed that there was a couple of small bugs in our case where when we peer afterwards for a second time with the same node that we already recognized in the past, but for some reason the connection drops, then we switch it as unknown, but in a wrong way because we already knew the information of that peer before. So we corrected that, but those nodes were like the numbers were very small. So and they don't
Right.
account for a significant part. Yeah.
Okay. So that might be the culprit. So let's we can take this offline, but I really appreciate you looking in. Hopefully we can get some lockdown on the numbers in the next couple weeks.
Yep, sure.
Cool. Thank you, Leo. Other Altair related items as we move into next week? I know that ETH Staker is doing a watch party. Sometimes a number of folks do, so if you want to join in the festivities, you can take a look at that. Okay. We can run through some client updates and start with Lighthouse.
Hello, thanks, Danny. So we've been working to get the merge face-to-face branch merged into our main branch, kind of splitting off little PRs and bringing them in to slowly get it into master, or what we call stable. We've been engaging in some discussion around the roles of payload building for the beacon node and the validator client. So we've been doing that on issue 2715 on the Lighthouse repo. It seems that the current favored approach is for the BM to drive most of the process. After the VC issues a kind of subscription type VC, the VC issues a subscription type message. Yeah, if you're interested in implementing that, then maybe checking out that issue is something worth doing. Michael Sprout's been doing some continued work on client fingerprinting and diversity analysis. And we're also lining up some significant bandwidth usage improvements for the next release. Just been working on a couple of breakages in rusted P2P. But I think that we're pretty close to being done with that. That's about it from us.
Excellent. Thank you. And Nimbus.
Hi. So we released the Nimbus 1.5.2 that is ready for Altair yesterday. Not urgent for 1.5.1 users, but for the others, they need to upgrade immediately. Otherwise, we had several improvements on the REST API. We increased the default limits so that you can make bigger requests. And also we improved throughput for especially for people who makes a lot of historical data. And also improvement on the networking side and peer selection side so that you can have less peers and we're cycling faster into peers to disconnect those that are less useful to us.
Thank you. And Prism.
Hey guys, Raul here. Yeah, definitely missed all you guys at the face-to-face and at ListCon. Nobody was able to attend from our team, but we're really looking forward to going to more events. Starting early next year. So yeah, Prism can now sync with the testnet, with the merge testnet. That's been a huge milestone for us. And we're pretty much all ready for Altair. We shifted work into other things. We're hunting for bugs in the merge testnet support, trying to improve the experience of running Prism with Geth, and trying out other execution clients as well. Aside from that, we have been completing checkpoint sync and starting to integrate support for Web3 Signer, which is going to be important for multi-client. for client diversity. Code health is also top of mind, so we've been working a lot on just improving the code health of our repository, reducing technical debt. Kind of when we have this downtime between Altair and starting work on the merge. Aside from that, we've been also thinking a lot about validator key management API standardization, and thanks to DAppLion for the design here, we're looking forward to supporting the standard in Prism, which will make it a lot easier to build kind of like multi-client web interfaces, installation interfaces. A lot of people rely on the Prism web UI in like critical capacity, and especially for like onboarding and getting importing their key stores and getting started. So we foresee this as being a huge boost in usability for everyone. That's it for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to the testnet. And Teku.
Hi. Sorry? Oh, okay. So yeah, we did a couple of release last week, introducing options to specify different ports for UDP and TCP for P2P. And we added the JDK 17 Docker support and deprecated the JDK 14 and 15 because we are not getting new security updates anymore. We also upgraded to Blast 0.3.6. We actually then broke the Windows user release, Windows release, and we forced us to actually roll back in the quick release after that. So what we've done also, not yet released, is implementing the API release 2.1, which includes the new header for specifying the consensus version. And what is not yet merged is support of liveness endpoint for double ganger protection. And since we had some problem for this release in terms of Windows support, we are working on better release management for detecting potential problems for Windows release, especially, and in general for native lib dependencies. And we are ready for supporting publishing system metrics to remote service, and mostly working on moving merge data from merge code from merge interop branch to master, which is a long process. And we, for the PTOS testnet, we fixed one bug related to the sync committee participation rate, and we rolled over a new Teku version on the testnet, and works good so far. That's it.
Got it. Thank you. And let's start.
Hey everyone, DAppLion here. First of all, the merge interop was a great success, great vibes. We interop with everyone, including JavaScript-only execution and consensus, which was very exciting. Just a reminder, version 30.031 and any subsequent are ready for Altair, so update. We also fixed some issues, and now we are compatible with Fortmon. Looks we can interop with everyone fine there too. We are still working on improving memory efficiency and CPU performance improvements, both in Altair and in phase 0. Then also improve some TCP5 integration. Now we can discover the right peers faster. And yesterday we presented at DisCon the live client REST-based demo that we have been working on. So super exciting moving forward. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And Grandine.
Hi, Solus from Gradina team. So we finally completed this experiment with multiple runtimes, and we have Altair working. It looks like generally it works okay, but there are a lot of interesting findings, and some are not so great, and some are better. And I think I still need to write a bit bigger description about our experience with that, and the next will be focus on the merge interop. So that's all.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'm curious to hear. One of the things, and maybe you'd see over time, is just like that I'd be concerned about is, say, an optimization that is worthwhile to backport, and then you have to decide if you want to backport it to all runtimes. Anyway.
Oh yeah, this is I would say the one of the reasons why we tried this. We thought that well, if all the hard fork is past, then we should not touch it anymore. But it turns out that's not always the case, you know.
Right.
And yeah, and it felt like initially like it's a great idea, but later we thought that well, some optimizations and so on, and some similar things are good to backport. This is one thing. The another thing, actually, what we found really surprisingly hard is the transition process when you spin a new runtime, and it needs a lot of context from the old runtime for previous fork, and this is something that we underestimated really. So I think I'll just try to write a bit more about that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, moving on to merge discussion. Obviously, we did not have this call 2 weeks ago because of the Amphora interop, and there's been plenty of write-ups about that. Moving forward, there were a number of, based off of discussions there, a number of alterations to the specs, primarily in the simplification, and a lot to do with the engine API. I've been chipping away at that, and Mikhail just got back from vacation today, so we will both be chipping away at that with a target to complete all of those changes by the end of October, so that we can release a new stable target of specs then. So you can follow the changes in kind of the active development branch on any of those 3 components: consensus layer, execution layer, and engine API. But that is not what Pythos is targeting, and so and it is also will change a lot, and will continue to change over the next week. But moving out from there, we do plan on then having kind of a new testnet target at the end of November based off of this stuff. Nothing's radically changing, and most of the core functionality is stable, if not some communication a bit simplified. Other merge related items today? Something that Paul brought up is naming. Right now we kind of call the whole thing the merge, but then we call the time at which the beacon chain upgrades its logic, but the merge hasn't happened, the merge fork, and then we kind of call the point at which the transition occurs the transition process, but it's also a bit confusing because the whole thing is called the merge, then you have the merge fork, then you have the merge transition process. And there was a suggestion to maybe name the upgrade. It would also avoid the name collision with merging PRs, which is kind of funny. I don't know the proper path here on picking a name. It also collides with naming process on the execution layer. There was a bunch of conversation in the merge general channel. I don't think we're not going to come to a conclusion today, but any thoughts to share that were not shared in the merge general channel on naming?
We'll have a new name for the merge fork on the beacon chain, right? Like it's like the next name of the name of the next star or whatever. nomenclature we use.
Yeah, I think by default that's the path, I think. So we could pick a B name. But then we have to think about what is the interaction between that and the upgrade on the execution layer. Does this envelope the naming scheme over there, or is this additive with the naming scheme over there?
It raises like more difficult thing, like what's the upgrades that involves consensus execution layers simultaneously will look like, and how should they be set up?
Yeah,
of course.
Because we also very well might have upgrades that are just on one layer. If just the EVM changes in the future. So Beetlejuice Shanghai. Tim said no because Shanghai's been reserved for a different fork, but we could kind of keep the naming independently and have it additive as the sum total. Beetlejuice Serenity. Thank you, Light Client. That's also not my intentional spelling. The intention of the spelling is after the name of the star, not the mad character.
Well, that's boring.
I guess, but then Beetlejuice is also a long name. I'm only saying that because it's the only star name that has a B that I know of off the top of my head. That's not the name. Okay. Maybe we take this offline. Maybe we talk with the people on the other side of the aisle and see if we can come up with at least like a compromise on how these names are related. And then if we do pick a star name, we can pick some nice ones and then either do a emoji vote or bring it to the call and see if anyone has some strong opinions. Okay. Any other merge related items? TLDR being Pythos is up. People are iterating and making things more stable. Specs to be done at the end of October, and then we'll have kind of a new meta spec that targets the stable versions of things moving into November, within the intention of these being near mainnet ready specs and really only changing them if issues are uncovered between then and later.
About the Pythos testnet, the transaction count is currently very, very low. Bartosz and me both have some ETH to distribute. I do believe that maybe 1 or 2 clients are not quite ready for transactions. At the merge interop event, it affects the state root in some ways, right? So it's just another way Dux could serve us. So far it's been running well, and I think we can handle it. So if anyone likes to have some test ETH for transactions, then please just reach out and we'll start distributing some.
Cool. Thank you, Proto.
Testnets are here to break, right?
Yeah, let's break them. Okay. Going once, going twice. Anything else merge related for today? Okay. Any research updates that people would like to share today?
Well, this is one fork more ahead, the withdrawals. Right. So I think that at least we should look at potential future API changes that the withdrawals may cause. So that the engine API is forward compatible. So we know how it might change.
Right. And a lot of that centers around push versus pull on withdrawals into the execution layer, which I think there's a rich conversation to be had around that.
Right. For context for others, The funny thing is that deposits on rollups are the same as withdrawals on Ethereum 2, where you move something from the consensus layer into the execution layer. We could try and unify these types of things. We don't have to. And then there are nuances as well, where like it's not exactly the same. So maybe we shouldn't.
The primary idea being there, if we do make the functionality look pretty similar, then the engine API can be reused in a different context to drive rollups, which is nice.
The push model is basically a new transaction type on the execution layer, and an addition to the prepare payload method to be able to introduce a transaction into a block that's suggested by the consensus layer instead of taken out of the memory pool. Then the alternative is the pool model, where the consensus layer keeps track of withdrawn validators, and then the execution layer allows you to mint ETH based on the commitment and based on another transaction, not a regular transaction, to some special precompiled contract that can process the withdrawal.
Right. Where the former's probably, if you can get it right, maybe a more elegant design, but at first look has a bunch of edge cases around, especially when those withdrawals are headed towards smart contracts, which consume gas, and there's a question of who pays for the gas,
Right.
what happens if there's a failure, that kind of stuff.
In the rollup context, you've been thinking about this in two ways. You could have a deposit that doesn't trigger the EVM, but just increases the balance so that you don't have these edge cases. But then you also probably still want the other side as well. So you end up with two types of transaction, or maybe it's some kind of flag within the transaction. So if you have some kind of fee payment for like the minimal thing, where it doesn't trigger EVM, but it just increases the balance, or maybe not at all, but just some limiting to this in the consensus layer, you can at least have this type of deposit or withdrawal transaction. But then if you want the contract interaction, you get into a hairy situation with fee payments and with failure cases in the EVM.
Right.
Anyway, keep an eye out for future updates after the merge while we are designing this API.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once we get the merge spec stable at the end of the month, that's one of my priorities, is to begin to specify and engage on the different designs on this. All right. Any other research updates or points of discussion? Great. Any other items to discuss today? Open discussion, closing remarks, etc. Great. Well, thank you for joining. If you're at LizCon, enjoy, and we will talk to you all soon. Upgrade in 6 days. It's exciting. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
See everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
you.